I haven't made a video in a few days. Been really busy. Had a deadline that I finished yesterday, I think. Friday. What today? I don't even know. Honestly, it's like almost 1 a.m. right now as I'm recording this. But this is the first time that I've had since a particular event happened that I've been able to sit down and talk about it without worrying about people coming in or going out or whatever. So you will have to excuse the pile of laundry behind me. I was in the middle of putting it away this morning. I ended up having to go to work before I was done. Was planning on doing it tonight, ended up getting distracted. I'll come back to that. So I have on my phone notes to help me stay on track, because God knows I love a tangent. This is not my favorite story. It was difficult. So for context, I had to work today on Saturday from like 2 to 6 p.m., which is not great. And at like noon or something, my boss texted me asking me to be at work 10 minutes early, which I always do. I always try at least to arrive 10 minutes early, or maybe I should say I tried to give myself a 10 to 15 minute grace period so that if there are problems with the train or something, I don't, arrive to work late. There are often problems with the train. The metro is dodgy at times. So getting that text message kind of irked me because I've been working there for almost 4 years and they still feel like they need to remind me to arrive early. I was like, I tried not to respond super sassy, but I may have been a little bit sassy in responding. But I said I always try to arrive on early, whatever. So then I kind of had it in my head don't be late today. Do not be late today. Leave even a tiny bit earlier so that you get there 10 minutes early. You show them, they zip their mouth. That was my thinking. So yeah, I had to be there at 2. I left at 1. My preferred way to get to work takes me about 45 minutes if nothing goes wrong. I was like, okay, plenty of incidental time. Cool, excellent, wonderful. I'm on top of it. I am a thriving adult. Walk to the end of the train to the end of the train line that I take, and I'm wearing my mask and everything and getting my Navigo all together. And the way that the stations in Paris work, if you're not familiar, is you have a big kind of lobby, an underground lobby. Most of the time it's underground. And to the side you have a ticket booth, and there's an agent sitting inside if people need to buy tickets or passes or something, or if they need directions or whatever. And then there's a set of turnstiles that you have to either pass a ticket through and pull it out again, or you kind of tap your transit card, and then you go through the turnstile. And it is not uncommon to see people kind of hopping the turnstile and blatantly avoiding paying any money for a ticket. The gate agents really don't seem to care. Although you do get some people, some random agents posted at different places around the network at different times, kind of checking to make sure that people have passes or have tickets. So if you're in the train system and they catch you and you don't have a valid form of transportation, you can get a pretty hefty fine. But the people who are sitting behind the glass windows at all of the train stations, people can jump the turnstiles right in front of them and they usually don't lift a finger. So today I was heading toward one of the turnstile alleys, I guess, aisles, and I saw out of the corner of my eye this guy coming up behind me, and I've seen this before. They'll wait for you to go through the turnstile, and then they'll kind of follow you through so that they don't have to worry about any barriers pushing them back. And full disclosure, I mean, technically it's illegal. The agents don't really care, apparently. When someone asks me if they can pass through, which I've had happen to me a few times before, if someone asks me if they can pass through, I let them do it, generally. I don't care. I'm the one who has valid transport. I'm not the one who's going to have to pay a fine if you end up getting caught. My conscience is pretty much clear, and I don't know your life. I don't know your story. Maybe you left your wallet at home and you don't have money to buy a ticket. Maybe you're down and out. Maybe you get off on the thrill. I don't care. If you ask me permission, I'm happy to let you pass through with me, generally speaking. But if people don't ask you for for permission before they do this, it basically means that they're pressing themselves up against you without your permission and without your knowledge, and then rushing forward so that they can get through before the barriers close again. And it is terrifying. Another little thing about me, I hate, genuinely, vehemently hate when people come up behind me all of a sudden with no warning. I hate being surprised from behind. I hate being like spooked from behind when people like jump out and say boo. I hate it. Cerebrally, I can't manage it. My brain goes into defense mode. I have had like mini panic attacks before. I can't handle it. It puts me in a really bad place. Can't handle it. So as I'm going toward the turnstile earlier today, and I see this guy coming up behind me, I just know what he's gonna do. Like, I see the body language. I see what's gonna happen. So I flipped around and turned around before I think at this point I had tapped my pass, but I hadn't started going through the turnstile yet. And I turned around and I said, hey, you keep back. You cannot come near me. Because also, it's COVID era, and you're supposed to stay a meter away from everyone, and he wasn't even wearing a mask. He had a mask on, but it was like under his chin, like completely ineffectual. So I turned around and I said, like, hey, you can't, please do not come near me. And he if looks could kill, I would be 6 feet under by now. I don't think burials happen that quickly. I would be in a morgue right now. And he started yelling at me, and I honestly, I don't remember anything about his appearance, because when he started yelling, I went into shock. The only thing that I remember about him is that he was missing 2 teeth here, and he was wearing a blue mask here. Don't remember anything about his like eye color. I'm pretty sure he was like Moroccan, Algerian, Tunisian, based on like the vague notion that I have of his skin tone, and based on the kind of accent that I was hearing coming out of his mouth. That said, when he started yelling at me, I did not understand a damn word he said because there was blood rushing in my ears. So I was hearing like the cadence of his voice, but did not understand a damn word. Also, I was just so furious I couldn't even concentrate if I tried. So, going through my notes, yeah. Oops, I started typing something accidentally. I do remember saying something like, I have a problem when I have to get aggressive or get, like, my voice needs to get defensive in French. I get really flustered, and I lose my ability to speak confidently. But somehow, I was able to get out a few sentences, like, you did not ask me for permission, you need to stay back, this is not safe, I do not approve of this, and he just yelled at me. He went in, and I'm cornered at this point. I've got a turnstile behind me. I've got 2 little, like, processing stations on either side. And he's in front of me, so I can't go anywhere at this point unless I, like, bowl him over to try to get out. And the ticket agent, by the way, is directly in my eye line. I can see her out of the corner of my eye. She's not doing anything. I don't even know if she, like, picked up the phone to call security. I have no idea. I just kept going, like, hey, back off, and he finally backed out, jumped over a different turnstile. So he clearly had the ability to jump over the turnstile. He just chose to try to buck up on me first to get through, which I'm already not okay with. And I had to kind of take a second and shake it off mentally. Say, like, okay, that was unpleasant. You're alive. You're still in one piece. At that point, I turn around, try to go back through the turnstile system again. The way it works in France, if you have a transit pass, it's called a Navigo, if you tap it, it's pretty much invalidated again for the next, like, 20 minutes or so. Like, if you try to tap it twice, it'll give you a big red X. So the agent has to, like, wave you through, has to, like, press the button and, like, unlock one of the turnstiles. And so I kind of, like, indicated to her, like, my pass got blocked. She saw me, she passed me through immediately, so I kind of got verification that she could see me and hear me, and she just didn't do anything. Cool. And then I get through the turnstile, and I get to the other side, and the guy is waiting there for me to yell at me some more. Imagine having already had a moment of panic if someone comes up behind you unannounced and freaks you out, and you try to regain calm, and then you see him waiting there for you. My heart froze. Because, like, I don't want to get into a yelling match. I don't want to, like, have to argue more in a not my native language. If it were in English, it might be a different story. But if I have to argue in French, I get really flustered. So I'm kind of frustrated, thinking like, God, you're putting me in an uncomfortable position. If I stop and wait for you to go away, or if I try to go find a security guard, that's going to take time. I'm going to be late for work when I already made this big fuss about how, like, I make sure that I'm not late for work if I can help it. And I'm like, do I want to be the hysterical white woman who's calling security on a person of, like, minority heritage? Because in France, like, Moroccan, Algerian, Tunisian people, the Maghreb, are considered to be, like, it's not a great relationship between, like, the French and the Maghreb. So people from that area in Northern Africa have a really hard time with, you know, assimilation and acceptance and all of that, mostly to the fault of French people, let's be quite honest about that. Colonization, not great. But in my head, I'm like, do I want to be that white woman who calls the authorities on someone else? Do I want to be that person right now? Because I've got, like, the Central Park lady in my head, whatever her name is. And I've got, like, backyard or barbecue Becky and, like, all of those, like, sunglasses wearing people who get worked up over trivial stuff. So in my head, I'm just like, okay, don't make a big deal out of it. Just keep going. Do not make eye contact. Don't engage, and he'll back off. Problem is, to get to the train from where I was, you have to go through a tunnel, go down some stairs, go through another tiny tunnel, and then you get to the train platform. He was standing in the middle of the tunnel to get to the stairs. So in order to get by him, I had to, like, get within, you know, a certain distance from him. And the whole time, he's still yelling. No idea what he said. Did not hear a single word of it. Because I was also very resolutely keeping my headphones in, because I didn't want to give him the time of day. So in my head, like, taking out your headphones means that you're giving them more attention. So I had my headphones in. It was still cranking. I don't even know what it was playing at this point. And he is, like, yelling at me, yelling, whatever. And then he reaches out and smacks me on the arm. So it wasn't like a punch. It wasn't like, you know, something with, like, all of the strength of his arm behind it. It was like if you have a younger brother who's, like, annoying you, kind of flitting all around you, you might just kind of be like, get out of my face or something. So he kind of hit me like that. But it was enough. And I shrieked at him. My voice went high and pitchy, and you know I can get high and pitchy. Just like, do not touch me like that. Get the hell away from me, basically, in French. And there's another man walking just, like, a little bit up in front of me, and at this point, he finally turns around. I'm sure he could have heard this guy yelling the whole time, but he didn't engage. It's only when I said, do not touch me, that he turned around. But he kept walking forward. He didn't do anything to come back. Okay, and so there's a little part of me that says, like, I do not want a knight in shining armor to come and help me. But if this guy's going to start getting physical with me, I know my own body. I know my own strength. I cannot fight anyone off. I do not have upper body strength. Look at this mush. This is not going to help me win any fights. I would have to, like, get a crotch shot in and run like hell. I was also wearing sandals, which is really hard to run in. But it's been hot. So I yelled at him, don't touch me. He keeps yelling back at me. I keep barreling forward. At this point, my eyes are, like, going white in shock because I was so... Honestly, I was scared at this point. He's been going for, like, a good 3 or so minutes by now, and I was like, I don't know how much longer this is going to take before this ends. So I walk toward the train at this point. The way that the train platform is laid out in this particular station is, like, you walk down the stairs, down this little tunnel, and then you see the front of the train, which has the conductor in it. So in my head, I'm thinking, like, if this guy goes at me again, I will run up to the conductor. He has to help. The conductors are trained in, like, de-escalation things. I think I read that somewhere. And if not, like, the train is full of people. Someone's going to step in. I hope someone's going to step in. He didn't make a move as I was walking, so I was just like, okay, keep going. No engagement. He's not here. You're not doing anything wrong. He came at you at this point, and at some point I was just like, okay, well, no. He's yelling at me. He's trying to hit me. This is no longer a question of, like, white woman versus, like, minority man. Like, this is aggressor versus aggressee. And there's no justification for anything coming from him. I can't think that there was any justification for anything coming from him. So I walk down the train a little bit. The trains are still kind of like half the seats are still marked off so that people aren't sitting in close proximity of each other. So I'm like walking alongside the train trying to find a seat cluster that's open so I can sit down. And I soon find one and sit down, and the guy gets on the train in front of me, keeps yelling at me, and I stood back up and I said, "It is done. This is over. We are not doing this anymore. Go away." And I think at that point other people started to turn and look around. I honestly don't know if they did, because I saw him start looking around and go, ugh. And then he stepped off, walked a little bit further behind me, kept gesturing at me through the window of the train, and then got on the train a couple like doors down. The train is like one long snake. It's not like different cars linked together. It's one long thing with like little accordion folds here and there so it can take the turns. So you could walk from one end of the train to the other without going through any doors. So at this point, I can still hear him muttering behind me. I can just feel his eyes on the back of my neck. I'm terrified. Because if someone's been yelling at you and starting to physically aggress you, and then is on the same train as you, how are you supposed to feel? And, like, I didn't see anyone else around me, reassuring me, or, a guy sitting next to me to kind of, like, put his, like, weight in between us, because I know this guy that's yelling at me would have been the kind to disregard any sort of female authority. Clearly, I said no, he didn't care. I could see him at some point, like, in the reflection of the window of the train, still staring at me. But in my mind, I'm still like, but I have to get to work. I can't be late for work. I can't get off the train and wait for another one to come, because if I get off this train, what if he gets off too, and then is harassing me, and I don't have a train to get into, and there's no one else on the platform? At least here, there are people around me. And if he gets into it, we can pull the emergency brake and something else can happen. But in my head, I was just like, this can't last any longer. Just go. If he comes back up to you again, maybe you can get off a couple stations later and negotiate. I was like, do I do that, like, Mission Impossible thing of, like, wait until the last possible second to get off the train before you do, just before the doors close, so then he's trapped inside and has to zoom off? I don't know. In the end, it wasn't necessary. I didn't see him get off the train. I was kind of very resolutely looking at my phone the whole time and not giving him any attention. I was actually composing, like, the experience on Instagram, like, stories, being like, this just happened to me, oh, and then, like, making a note of everything on my phone. But I had to ride that train for 17 stops, and I didn't know if he was still there. So 17 stops on that train's about 25 minutes. That was 25 minutes of thinly veiled panic. And it's just that feeling of, like, why do people feel the need to exert power in terms of fear and intimidation and aggression? And why is it women? And why is it trans people? And why is it, indigenous people? And why is it disabled people? And why is it underage people? happened in your life that you feel so frustrated with the world that you need to kick someone who you perceive to be lower than you on the food chain? I can't lie and say that I have pity in my heart for this man, because honestly, I kind of don't. He's a dick. But at the same time, like, there's a pattern. There's a pattern of people being awful to others because they perceive them to be different. And I know I'm a white woman of like middle class background, and my struggles are not nearly even a percent of what other people experience. I know. But anything, any kind of experience like this, it just slams you into that world of what if? What if he does get off the train and follow me to work? What if when I'm walking the 15 minutes between the train station and my office, he comes up to me and starts yelling at me again? Am I going to have to duck into a pharmacy and have them call the police because this guy's threatening me? Am I going to have to run the rest of the way to get there and then slam the door in his face? You can't help but imagine all of the contingents and all of the possibles and all of the worst case scenarios, and it just builds in your head. And if you have 25 minutes of that, what kind of adrenaline rush are you going to be living on? And then what kind of crash do you have later? So thankfully, when I did finally get off the train, I looked around. He wasn't behind me. Thank God. He must have gotten off earlier, but I was carrying that with me all day. I was carrying this with me all day. I had 4 hours of work to do. I had 2 hours of office and 2 hours of teaching. This was in my head all day. It's going to be in my head for a while. As soon as I got off the train, I called my parents. I called them back in Minnesota. It was about 6:30 a.m. for them. I didn't care. I needed to talk to my mother. God bless my mother. She knows exactly what to say. And then I got to work and I almost started crying in front of my boss. She wasn't very helpful. My mom said a lot better things than she did. And then, I guess I had to work. I had to buckle down. What is it? Knuckle down? Chin up? Buckle my bootstraps? I don't know. I had to focus, and I guess on some level it was nice to have something to focus on in the immediate, because then you're not, dwelling while it's fresh. But I know how I tend to handle these sorts of things. It's not good. I tend to just kind of shut my emotions down, and then they crop up again in unexpected moments, and I just don't want to do that, so I'm going to have to force myself to work through this. I also had a thought in my head, like, if this happened in my neighborhood that I live in and walk around in every day, what if I go out again and he sees me? What if I go out again and he, like, weirdly recognizes, like, the part of my face that he could see above my mask? Like, my hair was tied up, so if my hair is down, he wouldn't, like, necessarily associate long hair with this. What if I wear the same, like, pants? I wore, like, really bright floral pants that are now on the ground. I'm wearing shorts. But what if he sees those pants again and remembers that it's me? I don't know what he noticed. I don't know any cisgendered man who lives with that kind of what if. I don't know any cisgendered man, especially like a white man, who is afraid to walk down the street and hear a woohoo. Yeah, maybe they're afraid to walk down the street because of muggings, which is valid. But they're not afraid to have, a man within, like, a 10-foot vicinity. Every woman I know is scared of that. Every, bio woman, trans woman, non-gender conforming, every female presenting person that I know is scared of that. just got reminded that I should be too. So, in the end, thankfully, my friends texted me while I was at work and asked if I wanted to have dinner and drinks with them. So I had something to do tonight to distract me, and it was really good to hang out with them and spend some time. We ended up eating way too much Indian food. And then I came home and was looking around me on my way home, like I always do. Like, there's a thing that I know that every woman has tricks when they walk home alone at night. Mine is I watch my shadow. If my shadow is not being greeted by another shadow, I feel okay. If there's another shadow coming closer to me, my heart starts pounding, and it's usually nothing. Still. I don't know how to end this. I guess I just needed to tell a story.